Your pets see something you don't, a presence you can't understand. They could be slipping between realities and you'd have no idea. We're going to break down the creepy possibility that your pet has already sensed something you can't. And along the way, we'll uncover some chilling stories that might just change the way you look at them forever. You've felt it before, that eerie moment when your cat fixates on an empty corner, pupils dilated, tail twitching like a radar detecting an unseen force. Or when your dog suddenly stops mid-step, ears perked, staring at nothing. Maybe your rabbit freezes, as if sensing something just beyond the veil of reality. What if these moments aren't just quirks of animal behavior? What if they are glimpses into something we don't yet understand? Something lurking in the fabric of the universe itself. Before we try to explain this with science, let's start with the stories and the real accounts that make you question everything you thought you knew about the world. People across the world have reported their pets reacting to things they couldn't see, barking at invisible intruders, refusing to enter specific rooms, or even interacting with something unseen. Some pet owners claim that after a loved one dies, their pets continue to react as if that person were still there. Others report moments where their animals appear to be playing or communicating with an entity that isn't physically present. One such story comes from a paranormal researcher in Brixton, England, who shared the unsettling behavior of his bulldog, Pat. Unlike most dogs, Pat was known for his fearlessness. Nothing seemed to startle him. But something changed when he was brought to an old house on St. James Road. As soon as they approached a particular room, Pat's entire body tensed. He stood at the doorway, staring inside, ears pinned back, teeth bared in a silent snarl. When forced to enter, he let out a strange low whimper and bolted downstairs, refusing to return. At first, the researcher brushed it off. Maybe it was the scent of another animal, or some odd frequency in the air that only the dog could detect. But then, he learned something disturbing. Years before, a man had taken his own life in that very room, hanging from a beam in the ceiling. It was an event no one had spoken of openly, but somehow Pat knew. He sensed something lingering there, something unseen but not unfelt. From that night on, he refused to even walk past the room's doorway, treating it as if an invisible barrier had been drawn. There are also shows like The Haunted, an American paranormal television series that focused on real-life families whose pets seemed to sense spirits before they did. One of the most chilling cases involved a woman whose cat began hissing at her own reflection. At first, she thought it was just odd feline behavior until she noticed something strange. Every time the cat reacted, her reflection seemed off. A split-second delay, a slight difference in movement, just enough to make her skin crawl. Then, things got even stranger. Deep rhythmic claw marks began appearing on the mirror overnight, despite the cat being nowhere near it. The woman set up a camera to prove it was just her imagination. The footage? Her cat staring unblinking at the mirror for hours, while the glass trembled ever so slightly, as if something on the other side was trying to break through. These are just two of many such stories, so the question is, are our pets seeing something we can't? If your lights just flickered or if your pet is staring at nothing right now, maybe it's a sign to hit like and subscribe, just in case. To answer that, let's turn to science. It's no secret that animals perceive the world differently from humans. Dogs hear frequencies that escape our range entirely. Cats, on the other hand, their night vision is so powerful that they can navigate darkness as if it were daylight, seeing details hidden in shadows where we see only void. Birds don't just see, they sense their surroundings in a way that borders on the supernatural, detecting the Earth's magnetic fields like a built-in GPS, guiding them across continents. Now, you can't just brush it off by saying that these heightened abilities were evolved just for survival. Sure, that's true, but what if they allow them to pick up signals from something beyond our reality? According to quantum physics, multiple realities may exist simultaneously. If that sounds too complicated, imagine different versions of reality stacked on top of each other like the unseen layers of an onion. Every decision, every possibility might be playing out in a parallel world just slightly out of reach. If you're a doctor in this reality, you could be an engineer in another one. If you were born American in this reality, you could be German in another one. Sounds crazy, right? Scientists have debated this for decades, pointing to experiments that suggest particles can exist in two places at once, shifting states only when observed. And that brings us to one of the most unsettling experiments in quantum mechanics, the double-slit experiment. In this famous experiment, scientists fired tiny particles like electrons through two narrow slits onto a screen. If no one observed them, the particles behaved like waves, passing through both slits at the same time. The moment they were observed, they collapsed into a single state, choosing only one slit to go through. In other words, reality itself seems to change based on whether or not it's being watched. Now, imagine this happening on a much larger scale. What if our human senses are too limited to detect the glitches in reality? You see, if the multiverse exists, we should expect occasional leaks. Basically, there are going to be moments where the walls between dimensions thin, allowing one world to bleed into another. Our pets don't have the same limitations as us. Their perception is wider, sharper, attuned to vibrations, frequencies, and energies we've never learned to recognize. While we drown in the distractions of human life, our screens, our schedules, and our self-imposed logic, animals remain instinct-driven, responding to their environment in ways we don't fully understand. When a cat's ears suddenly twitch in a silent room, is it really silence? When your dog starts growling at an empty hallway, is it truly empty? They could be picking up something beyond our world, even if it is just for a moment. They could be witnessing a presence, a movement, or even a shadow of another reality briefly overlapping with ours. Maybe to them, these glimpses aren't strange at all. Maybe they live with this awareness constantly, experiencing a world far more complex than we ever imagined. Now, this concept of multiple or parallel universes isn't new. It's a concept that has been woven into some of the most mind-bending films in modern cinema. Inception played with this idea of layered realities, and dreams within dreams stacked so deep that those trapped inside could lose track of what was real. Interstellar hinted at it when Cooper fell into the Tesseract, experiencing time in a way no human should. He wasn't traveling in space, he was moving through dimensions, watching time itself shift and bend, existing in multiple places at once. What if that's what happens when pets behave as if they're aware of something else? If there's one thought experiment that completely shatters the way we understand reality, it's Schrödinger's cat. A paradox proposed by physicist Erwin Schrödinger, it presents a situation where a cat inside a box is, paradoxically, both alive and dead at the same time until someone opens the box to check. It's a concept that challenges the very nature of existence, that an object can exist in multiple states at once until it's observed and forced into one outcome. Yup, similar to the double-slit experiment we discussed earlier, but this time we are actual objects or creatures. Now, this may sound like a purely theoretical scenario, but what if it isn't? What if instead of a cat in a box, this is happening to real animals all the time, but on a much larger scale? Think about the odd cases where pets vanish without a trace. Some disappear from locked houses only to reappear miles away. Others seem to walk into the shadows and never return. We assume there must be logical explanations, but what if these are glitches in the system? These animals could be accidentally stepping through a doorway into another version of reality. And here's where it gets even stranger. Some pet owners have sworn that when their lost pets return, something about them feels off. Their behavior is slightly different. They suddenly dislike their favorite food, stop responding to a nickname they always recognized, or behave as if they're in a completely unfamiliar environment, despite being home. Could it be that they didn't just go missing in the usual sense? What if the pet that returned isn't exactly the same one that left, but a version of them from a slightly different reality? If Schrödinger's thought experiment applies to reality itself, then it means that our pets, and perhaps all of us, are constantly flickering between different versions of existence. The only reason we don't notice it is because our human perception locks us into one version of reality at a time. And that brings us to the concept of quantum entanglement. We talked about quantum physics earlier, but there's also another concept related to it that could very well be influencing our pet's behavior. In the bizarre world of quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called quantum entanglement, where two particles, no matter how far apart they are, become mysteriously linked. If you change one particle, the other instantly changes too, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. This happens faster than the speed of light, breaking what we thought were the fundamental laws of physics. Albert Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance. Scientists don't fully understand why this happens, but here's the question. If two particles can be entangled across space and time, what about entire living beings? What if your pet exists in multiple versions of reality at the same time, and their consciousness is somehow connected across these worlds? This could explain some of the strangest behaviors we see in animals. You might have seen your pet suddenly yelp, flinch, or act like it's in pain, but there's no visible cause. No one touched them, no injury. It happens suddenly, and then it's gone. Now, think about quantum entanglement. If your pet is connected to another version of itself in a parallel reality, what if that version was harmed? They could be experiencing a ripple effect from another timeline, from a world where something did happen to them. And it's not just theories, but we've got some research to prove some of these phenomena too. Time and time again, research has shown that animals seem to possess insane awareness, reacting to things that should be beyond their comprehension. One of the most well-known studies on animal perception comes from psychologist Rupert Sheldrake, who conducted extensive research into the strange connection between dogs and their owners. In a 2011 study, Sheldrake and his team set out to test an age-old claim that dogs seem to know when their owners are coming home, even when they're miles away. The results were unsettling. The dogs exhibited anticipatory behavior by pacing, whining, and sitting by the door minutes before their owners arrived, even when the return times were randomly varied and when no external cues like the sound of a car engine were present. It was as if the dogs were tapping into something unseen, an invisible thread that connected them to their owners across space and time. This strange ability isn't limited to dogs. Cats too seem to possess a heightened awareness that borders on the supernatural. One of the most compelling examples comes from research conducted in Japan, where scientists discovered that cats can sense earthquakes before they happen. A study published in the journal Animals examined cases of feline behavior leading up to seismic events. Researchers found that many cat owners reported restlessness, hiding, or agitation in their pets hours or even days before an earthquake struck. Some cats would refuse to enter certain rooms, while others would meow frantically or scratch at doors, desperate to escape. Traditional science attributes this to their acute ability to detect seismic waves as low-frequency vibrations that ripple through the earth before the main shock hits. But here's where it gets strange. In some cases, cats began acting strangely before any measurable activity had occurred. No tremors or shifting grounds, and yet the cats already seemed to know something was coming. And it's not just science either. Across cultures and civilizations, myths and folklore have repeatedly hinted at one chilling possibility: that animals don't just exist in our world, they act as gateways to the unseen. In ancient Egypt, cats weren't just pets, they were guardians of the supernatural. The Egyptians believed that cats had the ability to see beyond their physical realm, acting as protectors against dark forces. It wasn't just superstition either. Many Egyptians claimed that cats would react to unseen entities, their eyes following movements in empty spaces, their fur bristling as if warning of an invisible presence. Bastet, the Egyptian goddess of protection, was depicted with the head of a lioness or a domestic cat, symbolizing her role as a watcher between worlds. The Norse Vikings had their own unsettling beliefs about animals and the unseen. Odin, the all-seeing god, was accompanied by two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who were said to fly across all realms of existence. These birds didn't just gather information from the human world, they could move between realms, delivering messages from the land of the gods, from the past, from the future, and from places that existed beyond time itself. The Norse believed that some animals had the ability to pierce through the covering of reality, perceiving events before they happened. Warriors often took signs from their animals too. If a wolf howled at nothing or a horse refused to step forward, it was seen as a warning, a sign that something beyond this world had made its presence known. Were these just legends, or were these ancient people acknowledging something we now dismiss? Keeping aside science and mythology, even psychology has a say in this. We've all experienced moments that feel off, a familiar object in the wrong place, a conversation that never happened, or a person recalling an event differently than you do. These strange inconsistencies, often called glitches in the matrix, make us question whether reality is as stable as we assume. Some people who experience glitches describe a strange feeling of disorientation, as if the world is almost the same but not quite. Others report objects appearing or disappearing, memories that don't align with recorded history, or waking up with the eerie sense that something fundamental has changed. And that brings us to the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is one of the most unsettling modern phenomena, an eerie glitch in reality where large groups of people distinctly remember events, names, or details differently than they exist today. It's as if reality itself has shifted, but only some people retain the memory of how things used to be. Named after the widespread false memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, despite his actual death occurring in 2013, the phenomenon has sparked a chilling question. Are we unknowingly slipping between alternate realities? If entire groups of people can remember a different version of history, what if they're not misremembering at all? We could be recalling fragments of a world that once existed but was overwritten by another. And if humans can experience this, so can our pets. Animals don't have the same cognitive biases as us. They don't experience nostalgia, false memories, or the power of suggestion the way humans do. Their world is immediate. It is instinctual, sensory-driven, rooted in the present moment. So what happens when they start acting as if something is different, as if reality itself has changed? The Mandela effect isn't just a psychological phenomenon, but a sign that some beings, particularly our pets, are slipping between realities more often than we do. Last but not least, let's see what religion has to say about all of this. Science tries to explain reality through logic and experimentation, but religion has been answering these questions for thousands of years. Nearly every major belief system has something to say about animals and their connection to the unseen. Some faiths see them as guides, others as guardians, and some believe they have a direct link to the divine. Christianity has long debated whether animals possess souls in the same way humans do. The Bible often describes them as God's creations, deeply connected to nature, instinct, and the spiritual world. Similarly, Buddhism teaches that all living things are interconnected, and some animals may actually be more spiritually advanced than humans. In Hinduism, animals aren't just spiritual, they are souls just like humans, on their own path of reincarnation. The Bhagavad Gita suggests that life is cyclical and is a constant journey through different forms of existence. A soul that once lived as a human may return as an animal and vice versa. This belief forces us to consider something else. What if some of the strange behaviors we see in pets aren't just instincts, but memories? What if they remember pieces of past lives, other versions of reality? If this is true, an animal staring at a person could be trying to remember who they used to be. Sounds absolutely fascinating, right? If you've ever wondered whether your furry friend sees more than meets the eye, you're not alone. Like and share if you're ready to uncover the truth they whisper. We'll see each other again right away, because next, we're asking, are you the creator of reality or its prisoner? Subscribe to the channel and step beyond the veil.